The guests gasped. The music stopped mid-note, and for a moment, the entire wedding hall stood frozen, as the groom, standing before the woman he was supposed to love, sneered into the microphone and said words no bride should ever hear on her wedding day. This, he laughed bitterly, gesturing toward her, is what desperation looks like. The words echoed through the room like a gunshot. Everyone stared, first at him, then at her, waiting for the bride to break down, to run away in shame. But she didn't. She stood there, motionless at first, her heart pounding, her hands trembling. And then, she smiled. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the strength to rise even when the world tries to bring you down, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps spread more powerful stories that remind us of the goodness still left in this world. Her name was Clara Matthews, a 27-year-old teacher known for her soft heart, quiet dignity, and the kind of calm strength people often mistook for weakness. She had met Ethan Price, a wealthy entrepreneur, through mutual friends. He was charming, successful, and carried himself with the confidence of a man who thought the world belonged to him. Clara, raised in a modest home by her widowed mother, never imagined she would be marrying someone from a family so high above her own. Yet for a while, Ethan seemed to genuinely care. He admired her simplicity, her honesty, her warmth, or so she believed. But what Clara didn't know was that Ethan's family had never approved of her. They saw her as ordinary, someone who didn't fit their polished high society image. To them, she was a mistake, a woman who didn't deserve to step into their glittering world. And Ethan, too weak to stand up to his mother's manipulative whispers and his friends' mocking laughter, slowly began to change. What started as love turned into control, and what was once admiration became condescension. By the time the wedding day arrived, Clara sensed something was wrong. The air felt heavy with unspoken tension. Ethan had grown distant, spending more time with his old college friends who openly mocked her behind her back. She overheard snippets of conversation, words like charity case and lucky teacher, but she brushed them off. She told herself that love could overcome pride, that hearts could change, and that maybe the pressure of the wedding was making him act out. She wanted to believe that. The ceremony began beautifully. Clara walked down the aisle in a gown her mother had spent months hand sewing small pearls into, tears of joy glimmering in her eyes. The guests stood. The music soared. For a fleeting second, she thought everything would be okay, until Ethan took the microphone after the officiant asked if he had prepared his vows. What came out of his mouth was not love. It was poison. In front of everyone, he joked about how she had worked so hard just to marry rich. He mocked her dress, saying it looked handmade, not realizing it actually was, crafted by her mother with love. The guests shifted uncomfortably. Some chuckled awkwardly, others looked away. But Clara stood still, her heart breaking, her mother watching in silent horror. Ethan smirked, satisfied, thinking he had proven a point, that he could humiliate her and show everyone she wasn't his equal. But then something inside Clara changed. A quiet realization dawned. She had spent years believing love meant patience, compromise, and endurance, but love should never mean humiliation. She looked at Ethan, the man she once thought she'd spend forever with, and saw not a partner, but a coward hiding behind arrogance. Clara took a deep breath, her trembling hands steadying as the room waited in awkward silence. Then, with the calm grace of someone who has nothing left to lose, she reached for the microphone. Her voice, soft but steady, filled the room. She said, "Thank you, Ethan. I think you just gave me the greatest wedding gift of all, clarity." A hush fell over the guests. Even Ethan looked confused, unsure what she meant. Clara continued, her eyes glistening with tears but her tone unwavering. "For years, I believed love was about giving time, forgiveness, and understanding. But I see now that love is also about respect. And if you can stand here, in front of our families and friends, and treat me like this, then I'm not losing you. I'm freeing myself," the crowd murmured. Ethan's smirk faded. Clara turned to the officiant and said quietly, "This ceremony is over." She removed her veil, handed it to her mother, and walked out of the hall with her head held high. Every step she took was met with silence, until someone began to clap, then another, and another. Soon, the entire room erupted into applause, not for Ethan, but for Clara. That moment became the turning point of her life. The days that followed were hard. Social media buzzed with gossip. Videos of her calm speech at the wedding went viral. People called her the brave bride, admiring her composure and courage. But behind the headlines was a woman quietly healing. Clara had to face the pain of betrayal, the sting of public humiliation, and the challenge of rebuilding her life from the ashes of what she thought was love. Yet, she didn't let bitterness consume her. Instead, she focused on her students, her art, and her mother, who remained her pillar of strength. Months passed. Clara moved to a new town and began volunteering at a community center that helped young women build confidence and self-worth. She shared her story not as a tale of heartbreak, but as one of rediscovery. Sometimes, she'd tell the girls, "Life breaks us so we can rebuild stronger." Ethan, meanwhile, wasn't doing well. His friends who had once laughed with him now mocked him for being the groom who got dumped on stage. His company's reputation suffered after people boycotted his brand. But the worst part for him wasn't the public backlash. It was the quiet realization that he had destroyed something pure. He had lost a woman who loved him for who he was, not for what he owned. One afternoon, almost a year later, Clara was invited to speak at a women's leadership event. She stood on stage in front of hundreds, the lights warm on her face. As she spoke about self-respect and resilience, she noticed someone sitting in the back row. Ethan. He looked older, worn, and ashamed. When the event ended, he approached her, his voice low. "Clara," he said, "I just came to say, I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I've changed." Clara looked at him for a long moment. She could see sincerity in his eyes, but she also knew that some things, once broken, are not meant to be repaired. She smiled softly and said, "I hope you did change, Ethan. But this isn't about forgiveness. It's about growth. I wish you well." She turned and walked away, not out of bitterness, but with peace in her heart. Later that evening, Clara sat by her window, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of gold and crimson. She thought about everything: the wedding, the humiliation, the pain, the courage it took to walk away, and she realized that sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't anger or payback. It's healing. It's happiness. It's moving on without losing your heart. She smiled, thinking of how far she'd come. Her story had reached millions, inspiring others who had faced emotional cruelty to stand up for themselves. She had become a symbol of quiet strength, proof that dignity can shine even in the darkest moments. To everyone who had once pitied her, she had become a reminder that true power lies in self-respect. To those who had mocked her, she had shown that grace under pressure is the most elegant form of defiance. And to herself, she had proven that even when love breaks, hope can still bloom. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of someone who deserves better, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let's fill the world with more stories that remind us respect is the foundation of love, and every ending can be the beginning of something beautiful. And before you go, comment below, what would you have done if you were in Clara's place? As the night settled outside her window, Clara whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude. Not for what she had lost, but for what she had found. Herself. And sometimes, that's the greatest victory of all.